basic of needs. So a bed to sleep in, a cooker to provide a hot meal, all of those basic things. £3 million is what we thankfully receive each year to provide our grants with, and yeah, gratefully received, as I said. And the £3 million does go as far as we can stretch it, and I'll tell you a little bit more about how we do things and what that means as well. The grant outcomes aim to improve a child or young person's physical or emotional well-being, all linked to the Children in Need Impact Steering Wheel. And obviously we don't provide grants or items for parents, but having that bed or a cooker really does alleviate some stress for parents in the household there as well. So there's that combined impact going on with these grants. So yeah, just if you're not already a referrer, I'm presuming you're not. So we'd love to have you on board if we can. And yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about how you become a referrer and what all that means. You can only make applications to the fund if you've got an account with us, if you've signed up, and everything that we do is all through your online account. There isn't any paper, because we're dealing with professionals. And in that, it speeds up the process. So we do aim to turn around our grants in about 5 to 7 days. The year-to-date figure last year, we've just finished a year of grant making, started a new one, was about 3 days average turnaround. So we try and do things as quick as we can. This is what we can and can't help with, you know, the sort of headlines really of what we get asked the most about. So if we focus on what we can't do there, we get asked a lot about flooring. Unfortunately, we can't support with that need, but we do provide a rug and underlay, which does sort of meet a basic essential need there. We can't do any bills. We don't do any of the food or fuel vouchers, any of that sort of things. We can't do any household repairs. But otherwise, it's quite a small list of what we can't do. The major things that we provide are on the side there. So that's your cookers, your fridge freezers, washing machines. Children's beds are at the top items, top furniture item of what we provide. And, you know, we do help to campaign around bed poverty, and we work with colleagues in Children in Need to do that. It's a very important part of what we do as well. So yeah, and this is the one with all of the bits that we do, bits that we don't do. But section 8 of the referrer guidelines gives a full list of the exhaustive stuff, and to be honest, it's only a small paragraph if I'm honest. But they are the basic things that we don't do, and it's in a nutshell there. The list of items is on the application form. So when you sign up to become a referrer, you'll be able to have a look around the application form without submitting anything to familiarise yourself with it. And you could look at the full list of what we do there as well. There's all sorts of things on the list. You could ask us as well if there's something specific you were looking for to support a family with. So yeah, hopefully that slide's moved as well. Let me know if it hasn't. So now we're on the access and eligibility criteria. These are the basics, really. These are the stepping stones to eligibility. So age is important there. So we can't accept applications on behalf of an unborn child. But as soon as the child is born, you can submit their application and then we can support. Age 17, so as soon as the young person turns 18, we can't support, I'm afraid, on this programme. Residency is very open. We don't have a residency criteria. That was scrapped in, I think, around December 2019 or a little bit later. But yeah, really positive move for the programme in that we can support families seeking asylum. As long as the child or young person lives in the UK, then we can help. As long as they meet all of the other criteria, of course. So income, again, that's quite a fluid one for the programme. We obviously support families who are, you know, struggling in work poverty, all of those factors. There isn't sort of a closed access, you know, via benefits or anything like that. We can support working families as well, as long as they're experiencing poverty or destitution. Because this programme is funded by BBC Children in Need, we do ask that all possible statutory pots need to be exhausted before you come to us, because obviously we would expect that. vulnerability and crisis. So a child or young person. So obviously they need to be, because of the income criteria, there's quite open, and everyone who can apply will be experiencing poverty or destitution hardship. It can't be the only reason for application, if you understand what I mean. So there needs to be another element there within the household. So finding that vulnerability, explaining it to us, and the crisis, the immediate need there. I guess because we've got over 4 million children in poverty in the UK, the £3 million that we obviously providing grants wouldn't go very far. So there needs to be that additional vulnerability and crisis element in the household. It's never hard to find though, and I'll just give you an idea of sort of what we see the most of. Vulnerability criteria, so homelessness, mental health is something we see all the time. This quarter there's been a rise, so historically there was always a significant amount of families fleeing domestic abuse as well. That sort of dipped a little bit. Homelessness and mental health became some of the most presenting reasons for application on the programme since sort of the start of the cost of living crisis. The other thing to note, I suppose, we do see a lot of impact from the cost of living crisis, as you can see this quarter as well. Actually, loss or breakdown of an essential item is significantly higher than it's ever been, and it's even higher than these, because these were the back end of Q4 that we came out of in June. Yeah, so some differences in trends which are quite interesting, but also it doesn't point away from what we see, and that is, a deepening housing crisis and a deepening cost of living crisis, uncertainty about what is to come as well. Grant applications. So how do we do, how does the application journey work? So we receive, as I said, everything is on through your dashboard. So we receive the application through that. We then start processing it. It goes through two sets of people along the way, the decision-making process. The first person decision maker looks at the vulnerability and crisis element, and then it goes eligibility and then vulnerability, and then it goes to main decision. So it does go through two people, which I think you'll find that that we take that step to make sure in our decision making, to make sure that it's right. But the good thing is, I guess, with all of this is we only turn down about 10% of our applications. So because we're working with professionals, we know that the support is required, and you're able to provide the information that we need. But if we can't get the information that we need from the application, then we can park it. We don't turn it down straight away. We request further information on what we might be looking for off the referrer. And that's it, really. That's the little process that it goes through. But you may be expected, you can expect them to maybe get in touch with the grant delivery officers if they haven't got all the information that they need. So yeah, they do that by email as well, by the way. Fulfillment. So our suppliers, items, and the audit process, always fun. So we have a direct delivery model, is what we call it. So you'd be pleased to hear that if you were to order a washing machine or a bed, you won't have to go out and buy it. We sort all that out through our dedicated suppliers there. Everything is taken care of in the contract, in that if there'll be delivery, there'll be installation or building of a furniture item. There's no flat pack. And we do the removal and recycling with the white good appliances as well. So there's that included in what we do. It takes a bit of the worry out, I think, for the referrers. The 6% there that you can see in vouchers and cash are probably clothing. So, all of we only do clothing vouchers in vouchers. But BACS awards, they are probably, a very small amount of them, would be to account for some of the blazers and things like that we get asked for young people who are in high school, because obviously they can't be bought on the high street. So I would say that's probably what those things are. The audit requirements is really something you need to be aware of. We do have a full FAQ section as well on the website, so please take a look at that, because it narrows it all down, I think, in a really good way. So the basics are 100% of our cash is audited. So if your organisation receives a BACS award, then you will be asked for the receipt straight away for whatever item was purchased. They love to shop vouchers. They are, there's a sample of those that our audit team do. And so we do request that you keep copies of the receipt. You don't have to keep the real receipt. It could be a photograph of the receipt or anything like that. That's perfectly acceptable, but it does need to be itemised. So that's just something to keep in mind. If you fail an audit as a referrer a couple of times, then it's possible that you won't be able to apply for vouchers or cash again. You would still be able to access the direct delivery element of the programme, but if you're not able to meet that requirements on a couple of occasions, then unfortunately we may not allow you to apply again. But if you want any more information on that, then of course please get in touch. Avoiding declines, so that 10%, how can we stop that from happening? Focus on the household circumstances. It sounds like a basic one, but we don't need like war and peace. We don't need loads of information, but we just need those snippets that help us to tick off what the crisis is, the immediate need, what is the vulnerability within the household. It takes a couple of sentences, I would say, to meet that. But yeah, just digging into that and steering away from focusing on financial hardship. Starting off the conversation, shall we say, with obviously that they can't afford the item won't really help, I think, the mindset of the decision maker as well. Just as a little tip, we're all human, but it might make them think that financial hardship is the presenting issue, and of course we can't grant on those basis. So I would do that. I would avoid doing that and just stick to the household circumstances to start off with. You can obviously explain about the financial situation, but don't do it as the presenting need there. Would be my top tip. Explain what the impact the item will have. Yeah, that's a key one as well, that sometimes we forget about. And it's just the basics really. What difference will that item have on the child or young person? Sounds obvious, but please put it down, because everyone's different and have different impacts, and there's different impact in all sorts of places. So yeah, please put that. You will be asked on the application form to list your items. There's an items table. Please put the priority order for those items. So 1 being the most important, and then 10 potentially not as important, but obviously we will then review what we can do in line with our grant guidelines and grant as much as we can. But I'll talk to you a little bit about that in a second as well, because we do have limitations. So if a family has had a grant within the last 12 months, we can't support them. That is the top reason for decline this quarter, actually, which is an interesting one. So we've got referrers who are applying within that 12-month window for families who've received support before. It was quite high. I think it's tipped to about 13% because of that this quarter. So we're just looking into how we can support that, but it won't be a change in criteria. It's more of an education piece, I think, with our referrers to make sure that they understand the guidelines. The basic there, vulnerability and crisis not being met, so probably focusing too much on financial hardship. The tiered strategy, now I'll talk about that in a moment, because that's the way that we manage programme longevity and the funding. Age, that always crops up. You know, we do get a large proportion of applications that are turned down because it just doesn't meet the age criteria. They're either not born or too old. So how do we do things? How do we make this £3 million stretch? This is our formula, really. And we do also, not just the 12-month application rule, but the white good items are really expensive. Our average grant value is about £320 on the programme. We don't mind, it's not all secrets. It is, you know, we're open and honest about what type of grant programme we are. We're there for that one-off need, that item that you can't get locally, and you need help from us to get. Normally that's the white good items and the large furniture items, to be fair. So in a household, if they need a washing machine and a cooker, we will only be able to provide one or the other. So priority needs to be given to whichever item they need the most at that time. I know they probably need both equally, but unfortunately we can't provide both. In the instance where there are multiple children and beds are required for all children, we would of course grant all those beds. We don't apply that rule to that. So beds and the clothing voucher allowance are the only two instances that we don't apply this really. We do some bundles of smaller low ticket items as well, which we could talk about, or which we can provide information on to give you more of an idea on that, if that might be something you wanted to explore. But generally I would say most referrers go for the white goods, or they go for the beds or the large furniture items. The average grant value, I've said there, when we tip 320, we know that it's a pressure point. The difference between 300 and 320 is massive when you look at the programme overall. We have a tiered strategy to manage demand at times where, you know, we know we're at those points. And it works. It works to ensure that we don't close early throughout the year. It's a lesser of two evils, really. We have the tier strategy there to stop us from having to close halfway through the year and not be open for 6 months, and that's the honesty around it. So we consulted 2 years ago with our referrer network about options, because, you know, we were spending quicker, you know, more money than we had really in theory for the duration of how long the programme needed to be open. And the tiered strategy was there. The referrers said even if they could only make one application per month, that would be okay, as long as we were open. So, you know, we were basically there in their back pocket, in their toolkit for that one-off emergency that they might need. And at times we do have to go down to that. So it is an interesting one. It does work. It does help us to balance the need. The organisational type strategy is another one as well. And that's where we're oversubscribed by an organisation type. This is it. So this is the visual. So the organisational type strategy, as I say, went live 2 years ago. It's been in place now across the programme. It varies. So we look at children in need have different geographical regions. Obviously, the nations are what they are, but England is divided by a north, a central region, London and southeast and southwest. Not the same geographical mapping as you would give those areas, quite different. But yeah, that's sort of how we manage it. So it'll range depending on how fast the money's being spent, basically, in those regions and nations as to where they sit in the tiered strategy. At the moment, we have all of England now in tier 3. So all of England can make, so the referrers, they're individual referrers, this is not organisations, can make one application per referrer per calendar month. We've had to slow things down a little because spenders got ahead in the first quarter. And the nations and regions, lower numbers of referrers at the moment, lower spend. They are on 2 applications per referrer per calendar month. But that is quite a low amount of applications, you might say. But we've got a really active network at the moment, so it's still managing to spend the money. That's not to say we don't welcome more referrers, of course, if we can, and the organisational type strategy provides that we can. We've got all the information online and we have it on the referrer dashboard every time you log in to say what the position is there. But that's just to give you an idea on this introduction of where we're at. But hopefully it will mean that we remain open for the full 12 months.